So it shouldn't be too hard to understand what the writer of chapter 3, verse 16 is trying to explain to us from Ecclesiastes. And we can certainly see the wickedness that he's describing that is in this place of judgment. We know who it is. It's the tribe of Dan, the adder in the path. That's those who are going to leap forth from the land of giants. Now, when you want to start putting some connections together, you got to see the name Dan really for the fullness that it represents. It represents the relationship to mighty men via Samson. These mighty men come from a union of the sons of God, daughters of men. Well, that's a crossing of genes. In other words, a crossing of DNA. So Dan is an anagram. You rearrange the letters and you have DNA. Exactly what the significance is, the special significance is with the descendants of these sons of God with the daughters of men. They're the Nephilim. They are the double. They are the ones that have been double crossed. And then they plan to double cross us in another way, if you get my drift. So this is where this wickedness in the place of judgment comes. As we can see, it's heading for us now in the last days. Now, the judgment that we're necessarily talking about that's taking place at this moment is leading up to this final judgment in the physical. All of this is still being promoted by Dan. Dan, in a sense, has left the blueprint for this judgment to be followed by the elite. Because if we see here in Ecclesiastes, this is an ancient writing. And even at this time, Dan is being seen as wickedness in the place of this righteous judgment. And if you understand this channel, and even if you understand the Hebrew Bible, we find out that there has been multiple judgments that have already taken place since Eden till now. This is how the writer of Ecclesiastes has already recognized that there's already wickedness in the place of judgment because he has already seen a previous judgment that has taken place wickedly. And this will bring us to the understanding of the Hebrew Bible in the beginning of Genesis, that if you read it closely within the first two lines, there's a judgment that takes place. I can even show it to you in my Bible here. And this judgment takes place in the description of the earth being made without form and without void after it was already created. So that's the first judgment that takes place, or at least the first recorded one that's in Genesis. Shortly after, guess what? There's a serpent. And then at the end of the Bible, at the end of the age, guess what? There's another judgment, another serpent. And then after the 1,000-year kingdom age in Revelation, guess what happens again? The serpent is let loose again. So we have a serpent at the beginning of Genesis after a judgment. Then we have the serpent again at the end of Revelation after a judgment. And then the serpent's held off for a little while, 1,000 years, as the Bible says, and then he's let loose again, another judgment. So what we can see is that the Bible is telling us that we're stuck in a cycle of serpent judgments that have been happening for a while. And if you watch a video series that I got, starting date for the Garden of Eden, 36,288 BC, you will see how many judgments that we have had. We've already suffered 6 previous judgments since Eden. We're experiencing the 7th and final one now. So the Bible will tell you there's been multiple serpent judgments. Now think about the Mayans. Think about their world ages. Their world ages are also associated with multiple cycles of ages that begin and end with serpent judgment. So what we find is that the Hebrew world age ideology is the exact same as the Mayan world age ideology. There's no way to disprove that. They both start and end with serpent destruction. So Ecclesiastes, or the writer of Ecclesiastes, is highly aware of the cycles of judgment that's taking place with the symbolism of the serpent that's being enacted by this soon-to-arrive tribe of Dan. And this tribe of Dan is going to be what we see recorded in Joel 2 as being like mighty men and like a race of beings that have never been seen and will never be seen again. I'll be back.